Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and excuse my hair, it is wash day. I have it in twist outs. But nevertheless, in today's video, I want to talk about a piece of the movie Sinners that I haven't seen a whole lot of conversation about, but it's the scene in the movie where Delta Slim was in the car with Sammy, and I want to say it was Stack, and he asked him to slow the car down while they passed a group of men that was doing some labor, and they were in prison. And so I kind of want to touch on that scene and about the importance of that scene and the history around that, okay? And so that brings up today's topic, vagrancy laws, and what that means and where it came from and the shadows that still linger in our world today. But before we get into like the legal aspects, let's kind of talk about a little bit of the spiritual part. So you see the word vagrancy comes from the Latin word vagare, which means wonder, and it's where we get words like vagrant, vagabond, and in the spiritual world or the religious world, you might have heard vagabond spirits, wandering spirits, restless, without a purpose, without covering, right? So these are basically spirits that drift away or untethered or looking for a place to inhabit, disrupt, or influence. And so in many traditions, these spirits symbolize instability, generational curses, or spiritual bondage. And that is interesting. And so the legal system took a word for spirituality, loss, and basically criminalized it for those who are considered living in poverty or poor. So legally speaking, vagrancy laws are laws that criminalize being unemployed, homeless, or simply being in public without a clear purpose. So in other words, just existing without the right status could get you arrested. So these type of laws go back to centuries, right? So in England, as early as the 14th century during the Black Death, laws were passed to keep laborers from leaving their work. The rich feared that a mobile, jobless class would threaten their control, so they criminalized wandering, and this idea threw colonial powers to France, Spain, and parts of Africa and Asia. And in many cultures, if you were poor and visible, you were deemed a threat. But in America, vagrancy laws took on a deeper and more sinister meaning, especially after the Civil War. So, when slavery was abolished in the late 1800s, Southern states faced a crisis. Basically, the question is, how do they maintain an economic system that was based on forced labor without slavery, right? So they passed the Black Codes, and vagrancy laws were right at the center. Freed Black people who had just been told they were citizens were now told they could be arrested if they did not have proof of employment. Think about that. Imagine being set free and the next day you're arrested because you didn't have a job. That's what vagrancy law did. So these people were sent to prison and then back to work through a system called convict leasing. States would lease prisoners to plantations, mines, railroad companies, and it was just slavery by another name. So let's fast forward to 1972. The Supreme Court heard a case from Jacksonville, Florida called Papachristou versus City of Jacksonville. And so this case involved a group of people, Black and white, who were arrested under vagrancy ordinances. And so the law was so vague that you could be arrested for just wandering around or being suspicious, right? And so the court struck it down because it was unconstitutionally vague, and the people needed to know exactly what did this law specifically prohibit. And so this case was important because it exposed how vagrancy laws were used to police the poor, more specifically the Black community and anyone who didn't fit into society norms. It exposed how these laws allow police officers to act on bias and not facts. And so you might think, okay, that was in the 1970s, that was then, but vagrancy laws never really died. They changed the name. Today we have laws against loitering, panhandling, sleeping in public, urban camping. Cities have passed ordinances to make homelessness invisible. And it's still about controlling who gets to exist freely in public, and it's still about who is seen as a threat for doing nothing but surviving. And spiritually, these modern vagabond laws reflect the same mindset: fear of those who wander, rejection of the poor, a failure to see the divine in the displaced. And so I really wanted to talk about that because that was a significant moment where Delta Slim told his story, and you see that the people who were doing the labor and stuff like that, and they were convicted under some vagrant law or vagrancy laws, right? And so I just want y'all to know, whenever we talk about vagrancy, we're not just talking about a dusty law from the past, but we're also talking about a weapon that was still and has been used to marginalize people to this day. And so we're talking about also the spiritual concept of wandering and being out of place, having twisted into like a legal tool for oppression. But we're also talking about awakening, about understanding the system we have inherited and choosing to change them. And so Cornel West said, justice is what love looks like in public. And so if you guys have made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. I would love for you to share this video, comment below. And what do laws look like where you live at? Do vagrancy laws still exist in disguise? Let's talk about it. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and turn on those notifications. I'm dropping more videos to come about different topics, whatever. Or if you have something you want me to specifically talk about, let me know in the comment section below. But this is something I just wanted to I wanted to touch and discuss, because I really didn't see too many videos talking about that specific scene in the movie, and if you know what I'm talking about. But I also wanted to talk about the history of vagrancy laws and how it's still kind of in effect in today's world. So anyways, you guys, I've done enough yapping. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.